Once upon a time, in the heart of Lagos, there lived a wealthy and enigmatic man named Shaw Williams. He was the CEO of Williams Tech Solutions, a leading technological company in the city. Despite his immense fortune and influence, Shaw was a man of mystery, preferring to remain in the shadows rather than flaunt his wealth like other elite businessmen. His presence was powerful yet elusive, making him the subject of countless fantasies among women who longed to capture his heart. Serving as his trusted assistant and closest confidant was Jay, the bridge between Shaw and the public. Many women sought Jay's friendship, hoping it would grant them access to the elusive billionaire. Among these admirers was Tenny, a glamorous socialite known for her extravagant lifestyle and insatiable desire for luxury. Though she had never met Shaw, she was obsessed with the idea of becoming his wife. Tenny had dated several wealthy men before, but none of them possessed the allure and exclusivity of Shaw Williams, the man no one could touch. Determined to break through the barriers surrounding Shaw, Tenny set her sights on Jay. With practiced charm and calculated seduction, she ensnared him, making him fall deeply in love with her. Blinded by his feelings, Jay was unaware of her true intentions. One evening, while they dined together, Tenny finally asked the question she had been waiting to voice. Pouring him another glass of wine, she leaned in sweetly and asked, "Tell me, Jay, what kind of woman does Shaw like?" Jay chuckled as he sipped his drink. "Even I don't fully know. My boss is incredibly private. But one thing is certain, he doesn't like flashy women." Tenny's heart skipped a beat. "Flashy women," she echoed, feigning innocence. Jay nodded. "He always says he prefers a simple woman, someone who isn't drawn to his wealth." That night, Tenny's mind raced. If simplicity was what Shaw desired, then she would become the epitome of modesty. By the following day, she had completely transformed her image. Her designer dresses, flashy jewelry, and luxurious wigs were gone. In their place were understated outfits and neatly braided hair. She played her part so convincingly that she manipulated Jay into introducing her to Shaw, never once considering the heartbreak she would cause. When Jay finally realized her betrayal, the pain was unbearable. One evening, he confronted her, his voice laced with quiet sorrow. "Tenny, I need to ask you something. Did you ever care for me at all, or was I just a stepping stone to Shaw?" Tenny barely looked up from her phone. "Jay, don't be dramatic." Jay's heart pounded. "Dramatic? Tenny, I loved you. I believed in you." She sighed, rolling her eyes. "Did you really think I would end up with a man like you? You're just an assistant, Jay. You were useful, but that's all." The words cut deeper than any blade. Jay felt as though the air had been knocked out of him. "You used me," he whispered, his voice breaking. "It's nothing personal," she said with indifference. "You should have known your place." As Jay walked away, something inside him changed. The love he had felt for Tenny was gone, replaced by a quiet but burning anger. Watching from the sidelines, his heartbreak was shared by Pedu, Tenny's twin sister, who was nothing like her. Where Tenny was manipulative and materialistic, Pedu valued kindness, honesty, and hard work. She had always tried to guide her sister down a better path, but greed had clouded Tenny's judgment. "How could you do this to him?" Pedu asked, disappointment etched in her voice. Tenny laughed. "Why are you taking his side?" "Because Jay is a good man, and you, Tenny, are a liar and a deceiver. You fooled everyone, including yourself." Tenny smirked. "Oh, please, Pedu. You're just jealous that I'm about to secure the life of a billionaire's wife while you remain stuck in your boring life." Pedu sighed. "Do you even love Shaw?" Tenny hesitated for a moment before laughing. "Love? Who needs love when you have money?" Pedu shook her head in disappointment. Meanwhile, Jay found solace in Pedu's quiet support. She reassured him, "Your heart isn't worthless, Jay. She just never deserved it." Days passed, and Tenny succeeded in making Shaw fall deeply in love with her. She played her role to perfection, humble, loving, and supportive. She attended charity events with him, pretended to love reading, and spoke passionately about wanting a quiet life away from wealth. Shaw was completely smitten. Yet, Jay and Pedu watched in silence, knowing the truth would soon reveal itself. Then, one fateful morning, Tenny's housekeeper abruptly left, citing a family emergency. In her place arrived a frail-looking elderly woman named Mama Ron, dressed modestly and speaking humbly. "Good morning, Ma. My name is Mama Ron, and I have been sent to work as your new maid." Tenny barely gave her a second glance. "Whatever. Just do your job and stay out of my way." What Tenny did not know, however, was that Mama Ron was no ordinary maid. She was Shaw's mother, Madame Ron Williams. Having long suspected Tenny's true nature, Madame Ron devised a plan to see for herself. Using her wealth and influence, she orchestrated the housekeeper's departure and took her place in disguise. 4 days, she observed silently. She saw how Tenny barely acknowledged her presence, treating her like she was invisible. She noticed how Tenny smiled sweetly at charity events, only to return home and mock the poor. She watched as Tenny pretended to be simple, only to secretly order designer items and rush to hide them before Shaw could see. Then came the moment that sealed Tenny's fate. One afternoon, Madame Ron had just finished mopping the floors when Tenny, in a rush, slipped and fell. Enraged, she screamed at the elderly maid. "You stupid old woman! Are you blind? Do you even have a brain?" Madame Ron bowed her head. "I am very sorry, Ma." But Tenny, filled with fury, continued to lash out at her, her true nature fully revealed at last. Tenny seethed with rage as she struggled to rise from the cold marble floor, her designer dress soaked with dirty mop water. Her chest heaved with indignation as she turned to the frail old woman who had dared to cause her embarrassment. "Do you know how valuable my time is? Do you even have a brain?" She spat venomously at Madame Ron, who bowed her head in silent shame. Madame Ron's apology barely left her lips when Tenny, overwhelmed with fury, lashed out. Her hand struck the elderly woman's face with a sharp slap before she shoved her down, grabbing the back of her head and forcing it into the filthy bucket of water. "You should be grateful I don't fire you, you useless cleaner," she sneered before storming away, utterly indifferent to the woman gasping for breath on the ground. Madame Ron sat there for a long moment, regaining her composure. Anger burned within her, not because of the insult, but because this was the woman who aspired to be her son's wife. She wiped her face with the edge of her cloth, determined that she would never allow such a fate to befall her son. The next evening, Shaw invited Tenny to a private dinner at his family estate. Tenny, convinced that this was the moment he would finally make their relationship official, arrived in a dazzling gown, her excitement barely contained. But the moment she stepped into the grand living room, her heart stopped. There, standing beside Shaw, was Madame Ron. No longer in her maid's uniform, she exuded dignity and quiet power. Tenny's stomach twisted with dread. "Shaw," she stammered, her voice unsteady. "What is my maid doing here?" Shaw remained calm, his face unreadable. "Maid?" he repeated, arching an eyebrow. "Tenny, meet my mother." The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. Her breath came in short gasps as she turned to the older woman, her mind screaming in denial. "No, that can't be possible. You're just a maid." Madame Ron stepped forward, her gaze piercing. "No, Tenny, I was never your maid. But you showed me exactly how you treat people you consider beneath you." Tenny's throat went dry. Panic clawed at her insides as she turned to Shaw, her eyes pleading. "Shaw, please, you have to believe me." He lifted a hand, silencing her. "I trusted you," he said, his voice calm but firm. "I thought I had found someone who loved me for who I was. But all I found was deception." A slow clap echoed through the room, drawing Tenny's attention. Her blood ran cold as she saw Jay standing there, his expression unreadable. He took a step forward, amusement lacing his voice. "Tenny, you truly are something else. You thought you were playing us? How clever of you." Tenny's heart pounded. "What are you talking about?" she whispered. Jay let out a deep chuckle, his eyes flashing with an authority she had never seen before. "I'm not just Jay," he said, his voice ringing with truth. "I am Shaw J. Williams, the real CEO of Williams Tech Solutions. The man you've been scheming to marry, the one you believed was the CEO, is actually my cousin, Shaw Adil Williams." We share the same first name, and I allowed people to believe he was the boss while I stayed in the shadows. Tenny's legs buckled as the weight of his words sank in. Sweat beaded on her forehead. The man she had insulted, discarded, and broken, he was the one she should have been chasing all along. She turned desperately to her sister, Pedu, her eyes pleading for support. But Pedu only stared at her, disappointment etched into her features. "Pedu, please. Help me talk to Jay. I was wrong." "I see that now," Tenny begged. "I love him." Pedu shook her head, her voice calm but firm. "You're not sorry, Tenny. You're just sorry you got caught." Tenny turned back to Jay, her voice trembling. "Please, Jay, give me a second chance. I swear, you're the only man I want. I love you." Jay studied her for a long moment before shaking his head. "Love?" he scoffed. "You don't love me, Tenny. You love wealth. You love power. You love the security you thought you were getting. If you had truly loved me, you would have chosen me when you thought I was just an assistant." Tenny fell to her knees, grasping his hand in desperation. "Please, don't do this to me." Jay pulled his hand away with quiet finality. "I'm not doing anything to you. You did this to yourself." He gestured toward the door, and 2 security guards stepped forward. "Escort her out. I never want to see her in this house again." "Jay, please. I'll change. I'll be better." Tenny wailed as the guards grabbed her arms, dragging her away. Her screams of regret echoed through the grand estate, but Jay stood unmoved, watching in silence. The next morning, every headline carried her shame. Socialite Tenny Ayai humiliated and disowned after deception uncovered. Her once-envied reputation was in ruins. Her elite friends abandoned her, unwilling to associate with a woman who had played the wrong game and lost. She had sacrificed everything, her dignity, her integrity, and the love of a good man, all for an illusion of wealth. Meanwhile, back at the Williams estate, a new beginning was unfolding. Jay and Pedu sat together, reflecting on the whirlwind of the past month. Jay turned to her, his expression softer than she had ever seen. "You were right about everything," he admitted. "I should have seen through Tenny sooner." Pedu smiled gently. "Sometimes, we have to experience the storm before we can truly appreciate the calm." Jay exhaled, his eyes searching hers. "I wasted so much time chasing someone who never cared about me, while the one person who saw me for who I truly was right in front of me all along." Pedu's breath caught in her throat. "What are you saying, Jay?" she asked hesitantly. Jay took a deep breath, reaching for her hand. His touch was warm, steady. "I don't want to make the same mistake twice," he said softly. "Would you give me a chance?" Pedu's lips parted in surprise. But deep down, she had always known, Jay was different. He was kind. He was real. And now, he was hers. A slow, beautiful smile spread across her face. "I'd love to," she whispered. As they sat together under the golden evening light, talking and laughing, a new chapter began, one built on honesty, respect, and true love. The lesson was clear. Love is not about wealth or status. It is about sincerity, kindness, and connection. Tenny's downfall proved that greed and deception could never build a lasting foundation for love. Meanwhile, Jay and Pedu's story stood as a testament to patience, integrity, and recognizing true love when it's right before your eyes. In the end, honesty and a pure heart will always triumph over manipulation and greed.